Let's look at the quality of the generated tests. And for that, I want to first demo the app. It's already running. So what I'm looking for is not so much tests that generate the data on the screen, as you see it now, but tests that verify whether the state transitions are implemented correctly. For instance, here, this button is in the state of being disabled. And if I click here, the state of this thing changes. And if I click here, then it changes again. If I want to select a product, I have only 3. But imagine that you had a long list of products and you wanted to reduce that list. So now it's only spinach. If I choose spinach, um, this button becomes enabled because I can now add the product if I wanted to. So again, a state transition initiated by a user entry. Here, user entry, state transition. If I remove this one here, then this data should be updated. Okay. If I add the spinach to the shopping list, this again should be updated. So a change of a user here has a change of state of this element, and all that works. Question: do the tests actually cover that? So let's look at the generated tests. Here I have the dashboard page tests. And if I go all the way up, then first I see these tests that after some data generation, I see here a test that verifies get test shopping items. Oh, that's also just data generation. But here it checks that the dashboard is rendered correctly when there are no products. Okay. Then it tests when items exist that it is properly generated. Okay. So this is all about display, but I want the ones that are about state transitions. Now here I have the filter one, and this one does the right thing because it checks for app and then verifies that apples indeed shows up in the drop-down for products, and it's done, this change by the user, this user entry, causes this state to change. And this assumes that originally apples wasn't there, which is true because originally there are uh, the 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 one that actually shows up is not there, or there is no pre-selection done. Quantity controls. Here it does what I um, showed before. Initially, with one, the down button is disabled. Then you click the increment button, and then it gets enabled because the disabled attribute gets taken away. It's now false. It's not there. And then when you hit the decrement button, it reappears. So state transition is properly handled, properly tested. The disabled button, um, here it shows or it checks that it is disabled, but it doesn't really check that it gets enabled when you select a product. So that one is missing as far as I can see. Yeah, that's not there. And another one that's not there is the display of the correct percentages. That does happen here. The display, you create the data, then you create all the mocked services, and then you render the component and you check that the right percentages show up. But that's only display. there's no user interaction here that initiates state changes that should be tested. And to illustrate that, I'm going to um, show you that um, if I take the dashboard, yes, and here's this add to shopping list. If I hit F12 on that, I see here the implementation of this callback. So if I remove that whole implementation, so the button does nothing now, next Explorer, run, you will see that all the tests still run and all pass, but of course the application is broken. So what can we do about that? How can we get tests that consistently test these state changes? I asked that question here. The dashboards, that particular one you generated in this file doesn't really test the logic of calculating store coverage because it mocks the shopping item service. Does this make the test set incomplete? How could I improve the testing guidelines so that you would have generated this test, so that it would have used the actual logic of the shopping item service? Now, mind you, the shopping item service itself has tests and it works fine. And these tests actually do verify that the calculation happens correctly. But as I demonstrated, that's not enough to guarantee that your application works. So it goes in there and it examines certain files. It's ready for the answer. You're absolutely correct. That test file is indeed incomplete because it mocks the service or that method, and it provides hard-coded percentages. This means the test doesn't validate the logic, bypasses the core business logic, and creates a false sense of security. Now, then it says how this is all without me interacting. This first prompt did all this. How the testing guidelines should be improved. And it comes up with solution. Then I asked explicitly which ones should I add. And it did that. It actually went in there and it added things to my testing guidelines. Let's now ask Copilot and Claude to generate a list of all UI state transitions that are initiated by the user and generate a test for each of these transitions using the new testing guidelines. Okay, it starts doing that. It analyzes all kinds of files, and then based on my analysis of the application, I can identify all of these, and then it lists them. Now there's a better list here because it generates a nice markdown file for that. So it summarizes again what we agreed on, and then it creates this table here um, for each user interaction. For instance, type in a store name field, then what state transition that initiates, form validation, state changes, then the test method that is corresponding with that state transition. And it does this for all of these state transitions that it finds. It's finding about 30 new tests in this way. And let me see here. This is actually the test, the first test that it listed there. Store form name input triggers validation state. So here puts a new string in there and then waits for the state to be adjusted. And in this case, that means a disabled attribute is added. And then it adds a valid store name. and it sees that the disabled attribute is taken away. So that's great. So by using the AI, we were able to find quite a few more tests. And then the ultimate thing is that I asked it, run all tests to prove it work. It didn't do that, but I asked for it. And then it's going through this whole thing of fixing all the tests. That takes a while, quite a while. And then it gives a summary. 26 comprehensive UI test transition tests are added. Great. It applauds itself here about how that would be great to do all the time. But then I asked it, what other improvements do you see? So instead of telling it you should have this category of tests, I ask it, what other tests do you see? And it came up with a couple of categories that I had overlooked. One of them being the tests for error handling. When I develop things myself, I do that during development. So I have um, the thing working without error handling, and then I throw an exception and I see it doesn't work well. I create a test, then I implement the proper behavior and I see then that the test passes. So in this case, when everything was generated by Claude, I totally overlooked that kind of tests, and so I forgot to check for them. But when I asked AI to do that for me, it did so rightfully, and I cannot find it, and that's not such a big deal. I just told you what I did. What other improvements to the current set of tests do you propose? Can you make it more complete, covering all application requirements? So now I let the AI itself figure out what it should do, and it comes up with a couple of categories. So there were already 89 tests, major gap, missing recipe functionality. Yeah, that I had totally overlooked. I had only done the first two increments, the third it didn't. So it comes up with that, and it goes into quite some work to do that. But I can guarantee you that in the end result, there were also tests for not only these recipe servers and it added, but it also added tests for um, error handling and business workflow tests. I haven't looked at those yet, but the nice thing is that it can help us all the way along to come up with improvements to our tests. And of course, I'm now going to um, take these new test guidelines that we together came up with and codify them in my testing guidelines for the next project so that there, from the get-go, I have those better tests.